wellnesscouch.com, streaming wellness into your lives.
You're listening to A Quirky Journey, the healthy family podcast with your hosts Jo and Fouad Kassab.
There we go. We're live.
Ah!
Exciting.
Woo, we're live.
Wow,
Hi.
Jo. So, Jo, we last podcast of the year, we reached out to our community and we asked them what they have questions for us and all that kind of stuff. So, they came back to us with a bunch of questions, which we will answer today. And it would be cool to get started now. So, what's the first question, Jo?
Oh, okay. Well, Cheryl asked how we met. So I think, why don't we start with our story?
How we met, a story of how we met?
And, you know, why we do what we do. That kind of, we tell this at our seminars, but for those of you who haven't been to our seminars, you might like to hear a bit of our story. Yeah?
Yeah, sure. All right, kick it off, Jojo.
Okay. So when I started blogging about, well, it was the end of 2008, I, of course, stalked all the other bloggers that I thought were really interesting and doing a good job, and learnt lots from them. And one of the bits of advice that I got was to connect with other bloggers, ask them lots of questions, you know, share each other's posts, because it's a great community and you start to build your own blog as well as learn from the other bloggers. So that's what I did. And back then it wasn't Facebook that was, I didn't even know about Facebook really. Back then it was more Twitter. That was the thing. And so one of the people that I met on Twitter was Fouad. And he would be chatting about his hate of margarine or all these things that I connected with. And I was like, yes. And I used to think it was so funny. One of my favorite things to do at night was to sit on the beanbag in the lounge room and read the tweets that were going on between Fouad and other people having these heated discussions about health food because Fouad didn't think like the other people on Twitter. So it just made me laugh so hard because it was what I agreed with, but I was not brave enough to get out there and, you know, argue about it a bit. So
you are now.
Yeah, I am now. But Fouad was more feisty back then than he is now. He's more chilled these days.
Can you imagine me even more feisty than I am now?
He's so chilled.
But well, those things used to be called tweet ups, I think, and like they had a weekly thing where they had a topic to go in and talk about.
Yeah.
It was run by these dietitians and nutritionists.
That's right.
Were really
so long ago. I'm trying to remember.
They had a very kind of molecular view of things and a very textbook kind of stuff, which was wrong. And they would talk about, you know, cholesterol as the root cause of heart disease and things like that. And it just had no grounding in being human. And what that means is that as human beings, we should be eating natural foods. And of course, we should be, you know, margarine and vegetable oils and all that kind of stuff. And what's funny is like we'd have people, for instance, from, say, the Gluten Association, like, oh, I'm the nutritionist from the Gluten Association. I'm joining this chat. And you know, saying why gluten is like there was a gluten person, like there was a wheat board, like the wheat board.
Oh, okay. Yeah.
I don't know what that, and or the, you know, some other, like they all had some kind of interest in promoting their agendas. And like someone would say, oh, gluten is completely neutral in the body. It just adds to the amino acid pool and your body can just build itself from, like, it's just a protein. It's just a protein. I'm like, well, some of the most toxic compounds on the planet are proteins. So like, I don't see how you just think it's just a protein as if there is.
So that must make it okay.
Protein. Yeah, like there's no such thing. You know, proteins are, in some people, quite toxic. You can't just put a protein in there. And that was the case with gluten. Yeah. And then also the margarine thing, and people were just completely still are.
It was such a new idea back then, though, wasn't it, to be against the mainstream in these things? Like, so you were one of the few voices that I heard speaking out against it. So that that really got my attention. And I was like, yes, this makes sense. So, you know, we'd chat and I'd ask him questions, and then somehow I helped you get your first Thermomix, didn't I?
Yeah. So
The
I was
restaurant?
looking at, no, I think it was before the restaurant.
Before the
I was
restaurant.
really looking at experimenting with it. Like I really wanted to make like a really smooth nut butter. And I also
Yeah.
had access to this dry ice that I was wanting to make like instant sorbets with and stuff like
Hmm.
that. And so I just I was really all into like, the size of ice crystals as they turn from liquid to solids and things like that. I was like, oh, I'm gonna get this machine, and it sounds awesome, and it's really high powered engine
Fancy.
and all that kind of stuff. And Jo was a Thermomix consultant at the time, or a group leader,
Yeah.
and I'd go on the Thermomix website, and there was like no mention of cost. I'm like, wait, how much is this thing? And then Jo told me what it was and helped me get it locally, which was I think that would have been around, I don't know, 2013 or 2012.
Yeah.
Yeah, 2013, I think that would have been.
Okay.
But we've known each
Well,
other
I
since
met you before that though.
2010 or
Yeah, I think I
2000.
met you in 2012. We in Sydney. We all went out for dinner together.
Yeah, in person,
Friends.
yes.
Yeah.
Yeah.
So yeah, we got to know each other over the years and chatted food and just kept in touch. And we were on the same wavelength and became friends. And then my son Isaac got really sick, and of course I started hassling Fouad more than ever, going, what do I do? I was asking all my friends that I knew researched health a lot and food, because I knew that it came down to we needed to change his diet. So I started asking Fouad about stuff, and he was running his own restaurant at the time, and he had someone come into his restaurant who had done gaps, and she had talked to Fouad, and so he linked us up, and then that was Leah who started the podcast with me. The three of us were going to start it together, but Fouad was too busy with his restaurant. So Leah and I started it. And then when she got too busy, around that time, you finished up with the restaurant, I think. And then, well, the second restaurant, I can't remember.
Second one.
Yeah. So a couple of years ago, came onto the podcast with me. And was it after that we decided to do the book, I think? Yeah, I think it was.
Yeah, it was after the second restaurant closed down.
That's
and I went through this kind of difficult time of transition and trying to understand what I'm going to do with all this knowledge that I have and all the time that I'd spent in food and learning about health and all that kind of stuff. And I had no way of actually bringing that out and sharing it with people. And
I think you were by then really enjoying sharing on the podcast.
Yeah.
Because he's, as you all know, he's very good at explaining the science behind the health in a way that's easy to understand and applicable.
Yeah, and I think to me as well, just the more I dug more deeply into this topic and started seeing the importance of the message that we have and really understanding the impact that sharing this could have on people, the more motivated I got to talk about it and to be able to put it in front of people more and more. And it still continues to this day. Like every time I learn something new about this, deepening this connection with our own nature and eating whole foods and nature itself, and just the importance of reversing not only our own chronic illness, but the illness that the environment is suffering due to us. I just find it to be the most worthy thing for me to spend my time in and to really focus on. And I was during that time I was podcasting with Jo, and also she was going through that whole thing with Isaac. And what happened was I was working at a company, like a listed company on and just doing IT work, which is my training. I'm a software engineer by trade, and I worked at financial corporations for a long time, which also fed my hatred for that kind of system, which is always about consumption and money and putting profits over ethics. And the more I spent time in it, I would see people who are just really beautiful people with so much potential, just channeling their energies towards something that they just weren't happy with, just to make money. And I just found that to be what was happening to me too. And I just couldn't live that way, because I knew I had to talk about the thing that I'd found, like the purpose that I had found in my life. And a lot of people,
really important.
Yeah. And a lot of people haven't found that purpose, so they stay in that kind of world, which gives them things that they need, like money and security and all that kind of stuff, which is completely understandable. But I think we're now at a time where we need to make bigger change. And then, so I was going through that kind of really difficult time. I actually discovered that week when you and I were talking about the book, that the company that I was working for was doing, had a software that Monsanto was using. And I just couldn't sleep at night. And then I was talking to Jo just earlier before that. I'd said to her, when are you going to do your next cookbook? And she said, I just don't have time. I'm not really sure.
I was so overwhelmed that I didn't feel like I could take a step forward. I was trying to do all my business myself, plus homeschooling the kids and running the home and traveling for book seminars for the old book. And I could not keep up with the emails and the messages and the people needing help. And to think of even starting another project just did my head in.
Yeah.
So when Fouad suggested it at first, I was just like, no, I can't. I just can't. But the more he explained how he could help me, the more I was like, oh, that would be so good.
Yeah.
So, yeah, you explain it, Fouad.
No, so that I don't think it took that long to sort of convince you. I think you too, like you were ready for
yeah, I knew it was time, but
you needed to do it.
To take that step because I thought I couldn't manage it.
Yeah. And I had no idea how I was going to actually leave this well-paid job and join you in Quirky Cooking and actually even make a living in any way that I was like, to be able to support my family. But I had a little bit of savings, and I thought I could sort of limp on that for a while, and just if we reduced our costs and didn't consume and all that, we'd be all right, you know. And so we downscaled our lives, and recently, like, we moved to the Blue Mountains to actually minimize these costs of living closer to the city and all that. But I just decided that week when I had the two news that Jo would be interested in me doing the book, and that I was working in a company that was working for Monsanto. I just felt so uncomfortable, and I put in my resignation, and I quit. And I had no real direction on
I'm pretty sure I remember you ringing me one morning and saying, Jo, I'm going to quit my job and work with you. And I was like, have you talked to your wife about this? And you were like, oh yeah, I better do that.
Yeah. No, I'd sort of spoken to her. But
she was very supportive.
Yeah. And Elaine was definitely, she saw how moving back into the corporate world was just like soul destroying for me, because I couldn't really be myself. I couldn't express these things that I do now. I find that to be the most important thing to talk about. So when I'm in a meeting talking about, service level agreements and, redundancy and load balancing and,
Give me what a yawn.
all that kind of stuff. Yeah, exactly. And so I was just going, well, that's just completely not where my focus should be, even though that's a skill that I have. But I took that to Quirky Cooking, and I used that to actually improve our online presence and all that kind of stuff.
I do not have that skill.
And then from there, when we decided to do the cookbook and we released the Kickstarter for our audience, they showed up in force and they really supported us. And we made it through that period of time. Got it to the point where the book now has sold 18,000 plus copies across the world. And
it was pretty much a bestseller before it was released. Yeah.
So this was the big shift that happened in my life, and not as big a shift for Jo, but now she has, me in her life, which I guess is a traumatic event for her.
Yeah. No, it's I often tell people I'm like, they say, oh, you must be so busy. You're always traveling. You're always doing this. I'm like, you know what? I am so much less stressed than I was 2 or 3 years ago. And you can even see that in my photos. You can see I was so thin. I had big dark circles under my eyes. It was partly food stress, which I had to change my diet and work on healing the gut. But it was also just the overwhelming stress of trying to run a business all on your own, plus do everything else. Yeah. And now that we've got such a great team and Fouad's helping me, and we just we just have so much less stress. Well, I have so much less stress. You might have more.
Yeah, I have more, you have less, so it balances out. It's fine.
No, it's great. And we just feel like it happened very naturally and it was just meant to be. So,
yeah. So that's the story, guys.
Yeah, that's it.
All right. What's next?
Okay, so we should probably just mention in here anything that we've got coming up next year, should we? Or should we leave that till the end?
Sure. So we have Brisbane. That's the only thing that's sort of
booked in so far. And the 21st and 22nd, we have seminars in Brisbane, 2 each day, morning and night. So that's on our events page on the blog. But just so you know what sort of things, where we're heading, we still want to get more seminars done around Australia, and we love doing the regional ones as well as the big cities as much as we can, to really spread, like Fouad said, this is our passion, is to really share the need to get back to basics, back to real food, back to the way we were designed to eat and the way that we were designed to live, natural, healthy living. So that's why we travel and speak about this, because it's often very much more, powerful when you hear it in person and when you come and talk to us and when you hear other people's stories, because we get people up on stage with us to talk about their stories and to share their businesses, people in the local area where you are. And it's just an amazing journey to see the changes. As we travel, we get to speak to a lot of people whose lives have really been changed by just getting back to the way they should be eating. And it's very exciting. So that's our main focus. And we do have other projects coming up, which we'll talk about more next year.
Awesome.
Yeah. All right. So let's answer some of these questions. Do
you think people are wondering why Fouad is sitting on the floor and just changing positions all the time, doing this, doing this?
Well, if they know you're a little odd.
All right.
Okay.
Guys, I try to do it this way so that I get a little bit more micro movements throughout my day. So if I'm sitting on a chair, I'll just sit on a chair and my posture will be all off. Whereas if I sit on the floor, I'll find that you can't sit long enough
in one position for a long time.
You have to shift. You have to constantly shift your position, and that helps me because I deal with chronic pain in my body. So if I'm not moving, I feel more inflamed. So this helps me just keep things going, and it's just a simple decision to shift from moving from a chair to the floor. So if you do that, it just helps out a lot. Yeah,
I find standing up helps me. I move around a lot when I'm
all of it. Yeah. You do everything. Everything's good. Yeah. All right.
Yeah. Okay, so Christmas is coming up and we've got a few Christmassy food recipe type questions. So the first one is, Kiko said she would love to know our go-to ham glaze recipe. Do you want me to explain mine first?
Yeah, go for it.
Okay. My mum always did for New Year's. She used to always or quite often do peach glaze for the ham.
Same. Mom. We do peach glaze. Yeah.
Well, she used brown sugar and the syrup from the tin of peaches. So last year I tried it with coconut sugar and the peaches in natural juice, and that was really nice. And you just make I can't remember, did we cook it down or did we just mix it together? Do you remember, Fouad?
Was I there with you? I did
put it on Facebook.
No.
No, but how did your mum do it?
Well, my mum never did it. It was never my mom. It was me. I get... Okay. When I used to live in town, I used to get feather and bone ham, which is incredible.
Yes.
Raised ham. And I always would get their peach glaze with them. So I never actually made it. I actually used theirs, and they used really.
I'm pretty sure it's cooked down like a syrup or like a glaze.
Yeah, it's almost like a jam, a jammy consistency. And I don't think you cook it at too high a heat because, like, you don't want the sugars to caramelize too much. But it's just to warm the ham through and to sort of.
They're gonna.
Yeah. So that's the way to do it.
I think some people put a bit of spices in, like allspice, and so you brush it over the ham, make sure it's all covered, and then.
Yeah.
The way my mum does it is she takes slices of peaches and pokes them with a toothpick into the ham. So it's the whole ham is covered in slices of peaches, and then you pour the glaze over everything.
Yeah.
And then you cover it and cook it. And then you end up with this hammy, jammy, peachy, glazy gravy sauce in the bottom.
Oh,
and then she would thicken that. Yeah, it's so good. And then I think she always had maybe she had a tiny bit of water in the bottom of the pan as well so that it didn't burn. And then she would thicken that on the stovetop with a bit of corn flour. So it was not opaque. What's the other word? See-through.
Transparent.
So the glaze, transparent. So it makes it like a shiny, transparent kind of glaze. And then, so you slice up the ham and then you drizzle some of that over. And she called it red eye gravy. That's a Southern American thing.
Red eye gravy. Ah. Yeah. I can't find the glaze on the feather and bone. I can't find the ingredients, but
as far as I know, it was just peach syrup or juice with either brown sugar or coconut sugar. But I can have a look for that.
Okay.
Yes.
Beautiful.
So that's very delicious. And I use the same sort of ham as you do, pasture-raised. It's got no nasties in the preserving.
Yeah, just smoke, salt.
And you can have to order them. Yeah. Awesome. Okay. What's the next one, Fufu?
You're cutting out a bit.
You got another question there?
Let me open.
Oh.
Yeah, hold on.
Back.
You're right. No, you're back. All right. So, what is your great? Oh, there we go. Yeah, Thermi made gifts.
Okay, go ahead.
All right.
I'll let you start.
Mindy asks, "What is your best Thermi made gifts?" I don't have any. I don't have any.
You don't have any. Okay.
No. But what I usually do.
Cheese.
I'll just
okay.
So for instance, now we're making the fruit mince pies, which we needed the Thermomix, the pastry for that, and the recipe is in our free ebook. And Lainey's and my kids have been cutting the stars and putting them on top, and we're just going to give a bunch of those out to our neighbors and our family. So that's what we're doing this year. But we don't go crazy. Yep. We just don't have the energy to cook for too many people.
No, I find things like that. You've got people coming anyway, don't you?
Yeah.
I find it makes a lot if you make the nutty chocolate and just cut them into small squares and put them in a little like a cellophane bag, that kind of thing. We also do. You can do Rocky Road, which I haven't posted on Facebook yet. I need to do that. That's on my blog with the marshmallow recipe. At the very bottom, if you scroll down the marshmallow recipe, at the bottom is a how to make Rocky Road. So you make your own marshmallow, you make your own jellies, make your own chocolate, and you mix it all together with whatever you want. Coconut flakes, nuts, seeds, goji berries, all sorts of things, and that really bulks it out, and you end up with heaps of Rocky Road, and you chop it up all chunky and put it in a pretty jar with the ribbon. So that's a great gift. Bread Fouad, that's a good one.
Yeah.
Macadamia shortbread.
Macadamia shortbreads are great. People actually are doing that as gifts for Christmas. That's super easy to do in the Thermi as well.
Yeah.
Beautiful.
The paleo fruit cake, the Christmas fruit cake that's on the blog. Some people have told me they're making them in muffin tins in the large whole muffin tins, and then wrap them with a red ribbon and give them as a gift with a Christmas card. Just for a small
wonderful. Gift. We're making that this year as well. So that's
cool.
What do you suggest we put instead of the eggs for Sophie and Lainey?
I think there's 3 eggs in it, isn't there?
Yeah,
I reckon you could do the chia eggs, but add maybe a teaspoon of baking powder because you'll need it for the raising.
What about a little bit of, I don't know, tapioca starch or something for the binding, because the eggs bind it a bit as well.
I think, that might be a good. good idea. It will probably help it rise a little bit more and be a bit lighter too, because the eggs will usually lighten it. Let us know what you work out, because there's been a few people asking about egg free. No, you have to recipe test even when you're on holiday. For those of you who are looking for body products to make for Christmas presents, I just remembered that I was going to make some for Christmas, but I haven't done it yet. Oops. There's a cookbook called Inspired Little Pot. She also has a website, and she does all body products recipes for the Thermomix. So that's got a lot of great gift ideas in that one, Inspired Little Pot. Yes, it's a beautiful book, actually. Yeah, so that's a few. Oh, also another one that I find is a great present is making a little, make a batch of the buckwheat and almond crackers, and put some in a little bag with a ribbon around it, and make little pots of the chicken liver parfait from the cookbook, and then you can give them a little chicken liver parfait with the crackers. What do you reckon?
Yeah, I like it.
Yeah. What are you laughing at?
Well, you got like 3 recipes ago, you were like, yeah, I think that's it, and then you're like, oh, but that, and then you're like, oh, and this, and over that.
It's just like, I love making recipes for gifts, but I don't have as much energy as I would like to make many. So,
all right.
Okay, next question then.
Next question says, what's your favorite food and your absolute weakness? And if you were stranded on a desert island, and if you could only have 5 foods, what would they be? Says Tracy Reed.
Okay, you can start with that one.
Okay, favorite food. Man, I mean, it's so hard. Like, it's such a difficult thing. My favorite foods is the food that my mom cooks for me, and so whatever she's cooking, I'm having.
So you'd have to take your mum with you.
I think that's right. I think if I'm stranded on an island, I'd like not take my mom, but
yeah, I think I need my mum too.
I don't think she'd be like the ideal partner on a desert.
Oh, mine would. Mine's like a pioneering woman.
Yeah.
When she was 19, she was shooting animals for food in the Ozarks.
Yeah, right.
So mine would be perfect.
Mine would be stressing about stuff. Yeah. And then, well, we don't have
You're getting thin,
to make this. Yeah. Where's the za'atar?
Oh, you better put that on your list. Za'atar.
Za'atar's good. I love lamb. I love cheese. I love butter. And I love just let me think. Mango is my favorite fruit. Like for
tropical island, so you may be lucky.
Mango would be good. Yeah. What about you, Jo? What's your favorite 5?
Well, I'm pretty close to yours, actually. Well, let me say, if it's a tropical island and there's coconuts, I'd be so set up, because I'd have coconut milk, coconut water, coconut oil, coconut to eat. So that'd be good. Coconut flour. Let's see, some kind of nuts. Maybe almonds. They're nice, and you can use them for a lot. I don't like
being around coconut because I'm a little bit coconut shy. Sorry, that's a bad joke. Coconut shy?
Yes, I got it. Very good. Okay, so coconuts, almonds, butter, definitely butter.
Yeah.
Because then I can make ghee or have butter.
Yes.
I think I need cheese as well, because you can pretty much live on cheese.
Yes.
And let's see, I probably should have a vegetable in there. We'll say pumpkin, because I eat a lot of that.
Yeah. Yeah. I think if I've got butter, if I've got cheese, I'll forego the butter. I'll go with some kind of, something that I can turn, like if every once in a while I felt like a cake, I could make it. I don't know. Yeah. Maybe with some rice.
So you need coconuts.
Just because, sometimes you just don't want, you can make rice, you can put the coconut milk and some mangoes, and you can make sticky rice with mango. Oh, that's really good. That would be a nice thing to eat.
Yeah. Oh, that is a nice idea. That's a really hard question, isn't it?
But if I'm on an island, I've got fish, so I'm not going to add that to my list. So
True. Got fish. Yeah.
What else? All right,
Very
that's good. Okay, let's look at the other question. It's taking too long, Joe.
Okay.
That question was from Tracy
Okay,
Reed.
sorry.
Fiona Davis says, I have a very fussy child, 10, she has 10 of them, who only eats pasta, rice, plain.
She has a 10-year-old.
Rice, plain bread, like rice bread. She does eat kiwi fruit and strawberry.
No, rice plain.
Oh, plain? Oh, there's no comma after that. Okay.
I think I better read the question.
Okay.
She eats rice and pasta plain. She eats bread.
What's
she does eat kiwi fruit and strawberries, but she's not willing to try anything.
Okay.
Don't send Fouad questions without punctuation because he can't handle it. He goes into starts shaking.
Yeah. And guys, while we're at it, it's not sort of or should of or could of. It's actually, so it is sort of. It should have, could have, would have, which can be abbreviated to could have, would have, should have. Apostrophe VE.
If I ever want to annoy Fouad, I just send him a message with should of. Oh. I should have thought of that, and then he just starts to scream. So just so you know.
Yeah.
Okay, back to the question. Getting off track. Okay. So suggestions on how to break her white food addiction. Okay, actually, this is a serious question, and we get this a lot. So when a child is addicted to white food, it's a sign of gut dysbiosis. The microbiome is all out of whack, and the bacteria are screaming for sugar because that's what certain bacteria feed on, and those have overgrown the good bacteria. And so it's something that's tricky to break, but you can break it. And we've found a lot of parents have a lot of success using the GAPS diet to balance out the microbiome again. And then once that's all balanced out, kids start craving vegetables and fruit and meat and real food, nourishing food. But we do have it does happen. So Emma, our assistant, her little boys went onto the GAPS diet and their tastes changed quite quickly. The first couple of weeks were really hard, and we are going to get her to do a video and tell her story sometime, because it's fascinating, and all the things that she went through were crazy. But within a couple of weeks, the boys were begging for vegetable soups, and she'd say to them, "Do you want broccoli soup or pumpkin soup for lunch?" And they'd say both. And they'd say to her, "Mum, can we just have Brussels sprouts if we're good?" And things like that. And they go out for lunch, and the kids will ask the waiter for a big plate of salad, and he's just, "What?" So it completely changed their tastes from the white foods and the junk food and sugar to the vegetables and good quality meats and things like that. It's something that you can work on slowly if you're scared to do something like GAPS, and we do have ideas on the website for how to do that. If you go to the top 6 foods for gut health, I'll put the links in the show notes. That one tells you a list of foods that you need to try and start getting into the diet. Before you take anything out, just start trying to get those foods in. They're really highly nutritious foods. Then there's also another one is getting started with GAPS, it's called, on the blog, and it's really good for just simple steps for making those swaps that help kids to slowly get used to eating better food. What suggestions do you have, Fu?
Your suggestions are perfect, but I think just to push that point a little bit is that all these white foods are made from highly refined starches, and the more you actually refine them, the easier they are to digest by the virulent bacteria. So the bacteria that has outgrown, they start really, really thriving on them, and then you start having these kids just craving them so much, and this thing plays with their hormones, their insulin. It really, really stuffs out their microbiome, and it's just really important to nip this at the bud, because you don't want your child to be addicted to these foods. It won't be them addicted to it mentally. It's just the bacteria, and the bacteria are asking for the stuff over and over again. And the more you feed that, the more bacteria you're creating. So it sounds terrible, and I apologize. We're saying this during the holidays, but this is something that you definitely have to get on top of as quickly as possible. Otherwise, your kid will be in danger of chronic illness later on. So this is the simple truth about that stuff.
The starches are super hard to digest for your gut as well. So if you have a child with any kind of illnesses or anything that the body is trying to fight, it can't fight these illnesses properly because it's so exhausted just from trying to digest the food, which is why GAPS is really helpful, because you're giving them food that's very easy to digest. So you're starting off with soups and stews and casseroles and things made from vegetables that are not starchy, so they're much easier to digest, and also really soft slow cooked meats and things like that, broths, which your body can straight away use those foods. And we also take out the sweeteners that are refined and starchy, and we just start with just a little bit of honey, swap over to a little bit of honey for a sweetener if you need something sweet, because that's already pre-digested. It's very easy for the body to handle. So that's the principle with GAPS, is really easy to digest foods that are really high in nourishment.
Yeah. Beautiful.
Okay.
Bianca Owen says, hold on, Emma.
Oh, hang on.
Says, yeah. What are your favorite snacks / lunches to get children eating more green veggies?
Kale triangles.
Kale triangles are really good. So
my
put them in with other foods that they love. Like yesterday or the day before, I grated some potatoes and zucchinis and onions, and I had a little bit of things like spinach in there, like finely chopped. And I did a stir fry with just stir fried potato in the wok. And the kids love the potatoes, and it kind of makes them eat it regardless of what's there with it. And
add a bit of bacon for extra.
Things like Happy Poo is the book that we recommend as well to people. It's on our website, quirky.com.au, and that book really encourages kids to eat more greens, because it talks to them about the good guys and the bad guys in the gut. And when they have a really good visual picture and a nice kids book about it, they sort of respond differently to the food. And then you can use that language that says, hey, you've got to feed the good guys. And they go, oh yeah, the good guys, what do they love? And you go, oh, well, they love the leafy greens and they love the vegetables and that kind of stuff. So they'll eat more of that too. And they'll even start eating sauerkraut.
Yeah, that's good.
All right. What's your answer?
One little tip: I wouldn't give kids kale right at the start that's not chopped really, really fine and cooked really, really well, because it's hard to chew. So I'd probably go with the softer greens at first, actually, like silver beet and spinach, broccoli and things like that you can get soft. There's a few recipes in our cookbook that I can think of that our kids absolutely love that have greens in it. One of them I've had a lot of good feedback on, which is the broccoli soup. Because I've made that one quite a few times in classes, and I've had people say, I don't even like broccoli, but I love that soup, and it's got broccoli and peas in it. Sometimes it's the texture for kids, and if you blend soup and it's really creamy, and they can dip something in it, you can make like a grain-free bread in toast fingers or something like that, something they can dip in it, then often that will help. We also make, sort of like what Fouad was saying, when we make a really tasty chicken stew, I'll put in a whole bunch of greens. I'll just slice them really fine and put them through that, and that just they're not crunchy, so I think the kids don't mind the texture. They're just all mixed in. And another thing I do is when I make meat pies and things like that, I actually chop a whole bunch of silver beet or spinach through with the meat and veggies and gravy inside a meat pie. So I just put it in everything, really. Smoothies as well. Yeah.
All right.
So that helps.
Let's have a look.
Traveling. Bianca's my neighbour down the street. She's traveling today. So when traveling, what's the one thing you don't travel without? You travel a lot, she says. What don't you travel without, Fouad?
Weleda products.
Food. Oh, well, I suppose that's skin food.
Yeah, well, no, she didn't say food. She didn't say that. And honestly, I will always, because this is my problem. Every time you go to an Airbnb or a hotel or something like that, they've got the worst kind of products in there.
I never use them.
Yeah, and no shower head filters for chlorine. So my skin is just completely dry by the end of my shower. And I need to moisturize head to toe, and I need to use really good quality products and good toothpaste and all that kind of stuff. So I keep my Weleda pack with me. I don't actually travel with food. Jo does, because she's got problems. But I don't mind. I don't mind traveling without food. You've got problems with that, like hunger. You get hungry.
I have hunger problems.
Yeah.
I'm not as bad as I used to be. I used to have to eat every 2 hours, every 2 to 3 hours when I was really thin. But once I got well, now I only have to eat, I can go hours in the morning before I have like a brunch, and then I can go hours and have dinner and I'll be fine. Okay. Depending on what I eat. When I'm traveling, if I start eating starchy foods, then my blood sugar levels go crazy. But if I stick to the way I eat at home, then I'm fine. Okay, but I usually take.
What do you take?
Okay, my friends laugh at me because my handbag is like Mary Poppins handbag, and you just keep pulling things out. So I quite often, actually, I always have a little jar of honey in there, little jar of raw honey, so that if I'm out somewhere and I want to put a little bit in my tea, then I can. I usually have a couple of good tea bags in there. I usually have, when I'm traveling, I quite often have an avocado in my handbag. Yes, I do, with a spoon and a little bit of salt in a little bag, because then if all else fails, I can cut my avocado in half and eat it with salt.
What's going to fail?
Sometimes aeroplane food and airport food. That's what fails me. Yeah. So as long as I've got something with good fats, it will last me for a long time, which is why I take avocado.
Okay, good. Let's
move on.
You do have to eat
before you land.
Chop.
Chocolate. All right, chocolate as well. Okay. Nutty chocolate.
What's the worst thing you've ever cooked? What's your favorite food? What's your least favorite? By Lauren Angus. What's the worst thing you've ever cooked?
Okay, so worst thing I've ever cooked. You start with that one. I have to think.
Well, I'm going to tell you a story.
Okay, tell us a story.
Lainey once made this amazing shepherd's pie, but instead of using salt, she put in Epsom salt.
Oh, no.
And it was the most beautiful looking shepherd's pie ever. And
what does Epsom salts taste like?
Like a bath, like an Epsom salt bath. It is bitter.
Oh, that's pretty.
I felt really relaxed after, but
your magnesium levels were high.
Oh, just perfect.
Did you actually?
I tried for her sake, but that's Well, the worst thing I can't remember. I've always done it.
Yeah, I can't remember either. I think when these things happen, what I often do is adjust, adapt, and overcome the recipe and change it into something else. And I always say to people, if all else fails, cover it in custard or chocolate, and everyone will eat it.
Yeah, good point.
Unless it's a savoury meal.
Yeah.
Yeah.
All right.
I think when I first started making bread, sometimes I had some scary outcomes, but my favourite food, I think we kind of talked about that with our desert island food.
Yeah.
Yeah.
What's your least favourite?
Would be offal.
Offal?
Yeah, and I know it's so good for me. So that's hard. I don't mind it in
sweetbreads.
I don't mind it in pate. I don't think I like sweetbread.
What's something that I can go, that's not good. Like, I wouldn't have that again. I don't know, that black Vegemite that you made me, the Vegemite replacement. I guess Vegemite and any Vegemite mimicking thing.
You weren't raised with Vegemite, so the idea of Vegemite is probably not great.
Yeah, like
great to you anyway.
I think Vegemite is like snake poison. Like it's one of those things.
Oh, like, my dad always called it horse liniment.
Terrible.
Looks like the black paste you put on a horse. I liked it when I was a kid, but I haven't had it for so many years. And I had a Vegemite replacement the other week, and I thought it was okay, but I didn't like it.
Veronica Pasalic says, so many questions. I want to know your thoughts on all the different sweetener alternatives, particularly xylitol, erythritol, etc.
You can answer that one.
Okay, I'll start with xylitol, erythritol. I used xylitol for quite some time, a few years ago, and I found it to be quite nice to eat. It has like a kind of cooling after effect in the mouth, and it didn't seem to affect my blood sugars much, and it didn't have any like real detrimental effect on my body unless I ate too much of it and you'd get the runs, because these things are called polyols or sugar alcohols, and they're indigestible by you. They feed your gut flora, and a lot of people think they're great for you, and a lot of people find them really, really gut irritating, and if they have problems with gut health, then they don't eat them. So this is
so if you have problems with gut health, you'll be more likely to get the runs from xylitol.
Certain types, like I don't know, it's an individual thing, but my approach now is to avoid anything that is isolated. So my favorite types of food, the foods that I focus on 99% of the time, unless there's some kind of thing going on, is foods that are made directly from whole foods without any refining. So they still contain either like a cellular structure or some kind of life force, or they're fermented or something like that. I don't like starches and isolates, and I don't like protein powders, even like really good ones, and I don't like anything like white in that sense, or white powders and all that kind of stuff. I just don't think they have a vitality in them. And my perspective around food is that it should have a transfer of the vital force, like the life, basically, like something needs to be alive, and if you're alive, you need to be eating something, living things. So that's my perspective on it, and it might be ideological in that sense. So I don't know, because a lot of people will take things that aren't like that and swear by them, but to me, I just don't think it's right. It doesn't sit well with my worldview and the way that I see food, and I would much rather eat smaller amounts of honey rather than large amounts of xylitol.
Same.
Yeah,
I agree. I remember years ago people were all about stevia. Stevia was the thing, and for one thing, I didn't think it tasted that nice, and for another thing, it was this white powder, and I knew it came from a leaf, and I was thinking, I don't know, but you could get the green powder, which is just the dried leaves. So I was fine with that, and actually tasted better as well. But most of the time I just use honey and just try not to go crazy with it.
Yeah, same. Yeah. So
and dates.
Just naturally.
A little bit of coconut sugar now and then for a treat, but not much.
The more you refine these things, the worse they become for you, and then you can overconsume as well. But like my personal experience with xylitol hasn't been bad. Like I've actually, it saw me through those days when I was low carbing and I needed some kind of sugar replacement, and I was trying to make that transition, and it did all right. Like, and I still, gained a lot more health than any kind of detrimental effect it had on me. But I just don't. Yeah, it's just that's how I feel about it. So Jennifer Joy says,
no? Yeah, go ahead.
Yep. Says, do you ever...
how about we do that one last?
Okay. All right. What's the next one then?
Do this other one first, shall we? This long one?
Yeah.
Okay. Yeah. So we've got a longer question here that's quite serious, and then we'll finish off with the lighter one. So this lady said that she's conceived while on GAPS. She's in her 11th week of pregnancy, and she's sort of gone on to eating spelt bread and quinoa and white rice and things like that to cope with morning sickness. And she's still home cooking everything else, but she's feeling like she's kind of beating herself up because she feels like she's eating things that she shouldn't be. And she knows that GAPS really helped her, and it just reset her body. And she was so sick in March, and now by Christmas she's so much better. And she's managed to get pregnant, but and she says she still eats the meat and salad and vegetables, but if she doesn't have bread, she gets very sick. And she wants to know what we think, she should do. So that's a difficult one, because pregnancy, I know I always craved the carbs during pregnancy. But there is safer carbs and less safe carbs, wouldn't you say, Fouad?
Yeah, so, I mean, if this is, you're needing that, and it's not time to break big habits or anything like that, then switching to a high-quality gluten-free bread is a really good idea. Something like our grain-free dough recipe, page 78, in Life Food.
I think that would be a safer switch than, say, spelt bread or wheat bread.
Yeah.
Just go for the grain-free bread.
It's more whole foods without, I guess spelt's all right, but like, if you've been on GAPS and you've done well, and then you're eating
the whole gluten,
it's a bit of a problem. Yeah. But I think it's also a time where you're just you just have to be looking out for all areas of your well-being, not just the food. So if stressing about the food is causing you more problems than the food itself, then I'd rather you not stress about the food and continue eating it rather than, making a switch. So it's a big.
And I don't think it's a big problem having a bit of rice and stuff when, obviously if your body's craving carbs and you need to have a break from GAPS. But the recommendation is not to do GAPS strictly when you're pregnant anyway, because it helps your body to detox, and you don't want to detox into the baby. So when you're pregnant and breastfeeding, you don't want to be doing that.
No, that's right. So I'll just keep things in a homeostasis. But also the first three months of pregnancy are usually the worst for keeping food down and vomiting, all that. And you're at 11 weeks, so you only have like a couple of weeks to go before hopefully you start feeling better and symptoms will improve. But if they don't, then see a naturopath about it, someone or a GAPS practitioner or someone who can help you make that transition, someone who's more knowledgeable about these tweaks that you should be able to make there. Yeah. Because
there's a lot of things that your body craves because it needs certain minerals. So that's why it's good to see a naturopath. You may need to take some kind of minerals, vitamins.
Yep.
Cool. Okay, last one. Okay, so Jennifer says, do you ever lose your cooking mojo? And if you do, how do you get the passion back? Eating well can take a lot of headspace and time. Well, we know that. And yes, we do lose our cooking mojo sometimes. Or maybe it's just we lose our energy, because we still love talking about food and imagining it and figuring out ideas, don't we, Fouad?
Yeah. Yesterday I noticed that the reason why I wasn't feeling motivated to cook is because my house was in a bit of a mess, and the fridge was really, and the fridge was just full of stuff, and I'd open that fridge and have like an overwhelm. So today I've gone in and I've cleaned my office, started to clean the living rooms and all that kind of stuff. Lainey's on it as well, and we're trying to declutter so that just having that kind of space be more productive and easier, not overwhelming. So if we can do it that way, that's the better way to do it, I think, than to just try to chop and cook when everything's just messy. So if you don't have the mojo, put your efforts into sorting out your space.
Yes, I totally agree. This whole week, I haven't had much help this week because I've got two of the older kids at work, and Katura, who often helps me, has been away, and it's just been so jumbled. Everything, I keep saying, this house is a mess, but it's like clutter, like you say. And so as the house has gotten cleaner and we've worked on it every day, and as things have gotten less cluttered, today I feel like cooking, and I'm like, yay, it's cooking day.
Yeah.
So that definitely makes a big difference. And also sitting down and planning what you've already got in the fridge, freezer, pantry.
I hate that. I hate planning.
Oh, I love it, because once it's all written down, it seems to clear the headspace for me. Otherwise, it's like the clutter in the house and the clutter in my head is all too much.
Yeah.
So if I can sit down and write some notes and figure out what I want to do, and then I actually write steps of what I'm going to do first to prep for, like, for instance, for Christmas, I've got a list written of the menus for Christmas Eve, Christmas Day, and New Year's Day. And then I've got a list of things that I can prep ahead and put in the freezer and have ready days ahead. So that's what we're working on today. That helps. Inspiration-wise, what would you suggest, Fouad?
So after you've done that kind of clear out, I think it's just good to get onto one recipe, just one thing that is simple and delicious and easy to make. Maybe something in the slow cooker, or something that can go in the oven and can make a large quantity of food, and that will see you through for a few meals. And then by that time you've nourished yourself, your space is clean, you haven't created a lot of mess in the kitchen, and there's food in your belly, and your blood sugars are stable, and everything's going well, then you might be able to be more motivated that way. So do the slow cooked lamb shoulder, for instance, from the cookbook. We put that actually on the blog as well. So put that in the slow cooker, salt, bit of water, walk off, come back the next morning. You got a lot of lamb there, so you can make so much with it. It's just super easy, and then take it on from there. after you've just nourished yourself.
I agree. That really helps too. When I get really overwhelmed because I know I need to do a lot of things, then I don't want to do any. Yeah. And I'll go read a book instead. So taking that first step of one simple thing that you can make does help.
Beautiful.
So what are you cooking today then, Fouad?
Today I'm cleaning. Tomorrow I'm going shopping. Lenny is making the fruit mince pies at the moment. There's some leftover life-changing dough, and I've got some silver beet and zucchini that I've already chopped and put in a container in the fridge. So I might saute that with a little bit of onion and sumac, stuff it into just a really thin pastry and make like a really rustic kind of tart with that inside. And put that in the oven and have that as a quick kind of snack for everyone if Lainey lets me use a bit of her pastry. And then and I don't know, so it depends. I don't think there's enough meat or anything like that for tonight, so I might go shopping and get like a little bit of steak or something. We'll just have that. Something simple today, and then tomorrow I'm doing the big shop at the seafood market.
Did you decide on for Christmas Eve?
I think I'm gonna get like an eye fillet roast, some beautiful roast, and I'll roast that with lots of veggies and things like that. And I'll have we're gonna have like an English style breakfast this year, and we're making the paleo Christmas cake, the fruit mince tarts. We're making what else? A bit of jelly and cream and that kind of stuff. So
for breakfast?
No. For breakfast, I don't know about breakfast. Breakfast is like...
I thought you said breakfast. You said breakfast.
No.
You mean an English dinner?
Oh, is that what I said? English breakfast? English dinner.
Yeah.
English Christmas.
That's what I was thinking, that's an interesting
an English Christmas, sorry. Yeah. My wife and her parents are English, and we want to do an English thing. So, that's it. Yeah.
Well, I thought I'd do a Middle Eastern. So I'm doing slow-cooked lamb and roast veggie salad with tahini sauce. Maybe I'll sprinkle some za'atar on top.
Sounds all right. Yeah, sounds delicious.
My mum's still sticking to the every year American Christmas dinner. So she's also making roast turkey, all the veggies. She's making cherry pie, but she's using our gluten-free, grain-free pastry. And I'm making the grapefruit pies with the almond meal pastry. Yeah. And we just someone gave us 39 egg yolks. So they had made big batches of almond bread for gifts. And she said, I don't know what to do with all these egg yolks. I said, make Russian custard. And she gave it to me and said, here, you make it. So we've made a big heap of Russian custard.
That's a lot.
Yeah, it's just going through the ice cream maker. So it's going to be Russian custard ice cream. So we'll let you know how that goes.
Sounds perfect, Jojo.
I hope so. But it's all really easy. So especially with mum helping.
All right, I've got to get going. So
okay,
it was a fun year.
Well, that was a good chat.
Really,
hope you guys
podcast year for us.
Yeah,
we'll be back in mid-Jan or something like that next year.
We're not going to do one at New Year's. Just have a break. We're gonna have a break, guys. You get a break from us.
Enjoy, everybody, and we'll chat to you in the new year. Jojo, see you later.
Okay, bye-bye. Have fun.
Bye-bye.
Merry Christmas, everyone.
This has been a production of TheWellnessCouch.com. Check us out on Facebook and join in the conversation on Facebook.com/The Wellness Couch. Subscribe to each show on iTunes and check us out on Twitter. The Wellness Couch, streaming wellness into your lives. Whilst the Wellness Couch presenter endeavor to provide accurate and helpful information to their listeners, these podcasts cannot take into account individual circumstances and are not intended to be a substitute for health and medical advice from a qualified health professional. You should always seek the advice of a qualified health professional before acting on any of the information provided by any of the Wellness Couch podcasts.